Hi, Black Hollywood Live fans. Today we've got kids in lockup who are suing Empire, the show on Fox, and sanctuary cities are protected. Stay with us for that and more on Justice is Served.
You are tuned in to Black Hollywood Lives. Justice is served.
Hello and welcome to the show where a panel of lawyers talks about the latest in legal news. Thank you for joining me. My name is Chelsea Galicia. I am joined by fellow attorneys Shaka Smith and Domonique Price. Welcome back, y'all.
Hey. Good to be back.
Missed you last week,
Yeah.
and now
I know.
you know now we're missing Yemi. One day we will have
It's a
a
heavy travel
panel.
season.
Yeah.
Is that the deal? Alrighty then. Let's talk about people who sadly are not going to be traveling anytime soon.
That is a really good segue.
Yeah, couldn't make that up. Okay, kids in lockup suing the show Empire.
Interestingly enough, I felt like they should have been suing the jail in this story because their whole claim is that they were put in lockdown for a commercial reason. But the interesting part is that Empire had to pay the facility to be able to film on their location. So my question was, what did the jail do with the money? Because if you're going to require these individuals to stay in lockup, that wasn't necessarily Empire's decision. Like, they could have been in the mess hall, they could have been able to, you know, use other facilities inside of the jail, but because it was easier on the jail to just keep them in their cells for this filming time, now Empire is being sued. So I really wanted to get a little bit more information on exactly who approved the shoot on the facility, and what exactly are they doing with that compensation? Because you would think that they would have at least given these inmates $5 for a candy bar.
Well,
I mean, or maybe have
commissary.
given, like, you know, a special premiere of Empire, like, in the jail, like something to make them feel like I didn't waste my 6 hours in this cell.
I mean, apparently it was a little bit more than just they had to stay in their cell. They were deprived of the rec yard, the library, the infirmary, and that's the one where the judge was like, okay, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And the chapel.
Hey.
Their sick requests were ignored, and their family visits were eliminated.
Again, I feel like this is on the jail.
Well, of course, whenever you're suing, you're not going, who's really responsible financially?
Right.
No, you're
right.
like, I want to throw everything at, the wall. And
And
so
the name of the game is you go after
the biggest pockets. But you name everyone just in case. Yeah.
Here's my thing. In a past life, I did a lot of event logistics. And so my thought process, and I've been on a TV show, and so anytime a production company is filming a show, they reach out to the off-site locations that they're going to be filming on to figure out what they need to do to potentially use that location. And so I personally feel like, while they're trying to go for who has the money and what's really going to be, a draw to, potentially get a settlement, I don't really see how Empire was at fault here. So maybe you guys can chime in a little bit and tell me why you feel like this could be successful.
They did have control over the jail. So at the point that their control is handed over, I guess technically they could have allowed.
But control wasn't handed over because at the end of the day, they never were able to actually control the inmates. That was still on the jails as their responsibility.
And the guys in control of the jail are named in this suit.
Yeah.
And they're trying to claim that they're protected because they have immunity.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
But you can certainly say there's an argument to be made that I guess Empire, because they had control over the infirmary and these different spaces, that they could have carved out some sort of, so I think they could have literally said,
if I don't run the jail, I have no clue what are in the bounds of what you do on a day-to-day.
Well, yeah, but they know they have control over it, so they do know they could say, look, some prisoners are sick, whatever it is you guys need to do, you can use the infirmary. So they could have said that.
But so what I would like to see in this case moving forward, I would truly like to see some evidence that the jail staff went to the Empire production team and say, hey, we have a few sick inmates. Can you edge us out some area now? We know that you paid for this area, and they said no. So that's what I would like to see, because right now I feel like this is a very flimsy case and it should go away pretty fast.
Well, I mean, it's flimsy because this is the very beginning. The only thing that's happened here is that the judge has allowed it to go forward.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll get some more details.
That there's a possibility that the plaintiffs could possibly win, not that they are going to or have any high likelihood of
Right,
doing
and
that.
I say this without sounding crude by any means or negative to inmates' rights, but inmates don't technically have a right to recreational or the library services. Now, the issue as to the medical area, totally warranted, but the other areas are not actually within their rights.
The judge
It's a beautiful thing that we as Americans allow inmates to get.
Well, no, I mean they do need they are allowed a space to be physically active. They have a right to have some activity, and I forget the exact wording of what rights and how much activity.
Right. But it's within the entire 24-hour period.
Yeah.
And so the jail could have made accommodations for them to all be able to go work out in the morning, again, outside of Empire's control.
Yeah, but it certainly didn't sound like that happened.
I mean,
You sound like a great
if
defense
the jail,
attorney.
right? I feel like, you guys,
Empire.
let me know.
She's trying to hit a fox.
But what I will say is that I just think it's really, really interesting, and I would like to see if the warden still has his job after this. Because even if complete control was given over to Empire's production team, how on God's green earth did you do that?
Yeah, this agreement shouldn't have been made to begin with.
Right,
so the jail is 100% culpable. The question is, do we add an
I just
Empire
don't understand
too?
how he still has his job.
Yeah.
Was he like, oh, I could rent out this space?
Yeah.
Look at it.
Come
it's
on,
beautiful.
you know that municipalities, facilities, they need more money, and so it's probably legal for them to raise money in these ways.
But not at the expense of
I don't
the
think it's
rights
ever
of
at
the
the-
inmates.
Amen.
Yeah.
Come
it's
on.
never at the
We have an
expense of the
entire justice system with private prisons and fines and all that goes after you for your money, even at the
But we're talking
cost
about,
of fairness.
but in a very legal sense. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we know it happens that things happen at the expense of inmates, but is it legal to then deprive these inmates of certain rights to raise money for the jail? I think if you find
Guess
that,
we'll find out.
I think as far as good PR goes, because that's something that we've discussed a little bit on the show before, I think it would be in good taste for Empire to put $10 to $15 on all of the inmates' books, as in hey guys, we didn't know that this happened. We feel your pain.
And a
We
cable
never wanted
subscription.
to,
well,
right?
maybe some more than $10 to $15.
Well, first of all, the actual minimum wage rate for an inmate is extremely low. So I would just pay them. It's like some change.
Well, because it's slow doesn't mean we should be sanctioning and going, well, for the 10 hours, here's $10.
Well, if the state gets to do it, why can't they?
Well,
Legit question. If the state only pays them like 80 cents an hour, why can they not?
Because it's a PR move. So it's a PR move.
Yeah,
I don't want to be accused.
I don't have $100 per inmate in my budget,
No,
but I may have a few dollars.
But I think Empire, if they did that based on 80 cents of what they
I'm just trying to
make.
give them ideas. I'm here to help you.
I think the PR backlash would be very bad.
What about the claims themselves? So the judge thinned out the case a little bit, took out some 14th Amendment related claims, but did say that there were 2 kids who filed it, and they did it as a class action for other similarly situated kids. And their claims are for intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Absolutely.
This was
What a
probably the
great
one claim that like burns my feathers every time I hear it.
Ooh, burns your feathers. I haven't heard that.
Except when it's valid.
Right,
Yeah,
when it's valid, but
you're
I'm
just
like, most of the time it's not.
Yeah.
Intentional infliction of emotional distress is a really high bar.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Really hard.
And I think you might meet it here because the it's such an extreme place to be in jail already.
I think if
and then
these
not-
are the 2 individuals who requested medical services and were denied, I think they have a huge.
great case.
I feel like they've already
so
reached
then
it.
that may break the class action though, because that would assume that
I
all
agree.
the kids,
I agree.
only
Yeah.
the kids who asked for medical treatment
Yeah.
have a claim here. And so to win on intentional infliction of emotional distress, it has to be extreme and outrageous conduct.
Yeah.
I think it was an extreme and outrageous conduct on behalf of the jail.
Yeah, but
I want to continue to assert
to
that. I don't think
to
Empire
deprive
has
someone
any
already
culpability in
locked
this.
up to medical services. I think that's extreme.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, if they have symptoms and signs after that as a result, I'm not surprised.
And psychological damage. There was claim of psychological damage.
No,
Well,
I can't get with that.
I can't. You're already in prison. It's already psychologically
Because if
damaging.
that's the
Anything
case-
more is too
If
much.
that's the case, we'll get people that are now suing jails for being put in solitary.
Agreed.
I'm just saying, like, that's a slippery slope.
Not sure we
I
can
don't-
afford that.
I
Right,
don't
but I'm
think
saying
it's-
that's a very slippery
I don't
slope.
think it's that slippery of a slope. I think once you're in jail, I think things get a little bit more sensitive and heightened.
I don't know if
And-
they thought that suing was going to get, like, some years knocked off their bid.
Hey,
I doubt it.
but it could in some
What
ways.
if everybody
it's
got
too-
minus a day?
But
I'm just trying to think of creative ways to get them
completely
damages.
address the psychological
Right?
damage
Right?
thing.
It could certainly give you less time if the psychological
A
damage
week.
is.
Yeah, everyone gets a week off their sentence.
No, but maybe even immediate if the psychological.
I should be like crisis management.
For Fox, you would have some Bill O'Reilly stuff to be dealing with. They've
But I work
got
for
lots
Fox. I
of
can't work
stuff
for Fox.
going on.
But I think if a judge did find that it was so psychologically damaging that inmate could no longer be housed there, they might find alternative housing or even get on probation or on house arrest. But it would have to be that would be a far higher bar. I mean.
I don't think that's going to happen.
But at the same time, this to me was abusive.
It was.
So
not on Empire's part. You
So-
would think I'm being paid by Empire today.
I think that you might be.
But I think we also don't know the necessarily details of it because the people
This is very fresh.
when it's a day on production is responsible for everything. So I'm sure they had some of the what do you call it, the jailers. I'm sure they had some of the people responsible for administering the inmates in the jail. However, the production usually is typically full control.
I'm going to say
I
that
don't think so.
the jail is going to say this is our protocol for shoots.
Yes.
I
Yes.
imagine that there is already a
Yes.
protocol.
That's
Yeah.
what I think.
But they do hand them relatively full control over.
And then they're going to say the protocol was approved by yada, yada, yada.
I think we also have to keep in mind that while that may be the standard in most situations for a production team to have full control, not when we're dealing with inmates that are being jailed for violent crimes.
But I guarantee
think
you
that's
there's-
a very
I guarantee you there was
shaky
some
level.
protocol by which Empire, like say an inmate started bleeding out profusely. I'm sure there was something that said, here's what Empire Production should do if there isn't a problem with an inmate. That's no matter what the nature of the problem is. I'm sure there was a protocol for them to follow. Whether or not they followed it, who knows?
Do you think that this case would be any different? Your analysis would be any different if these were adults who were suing instead of kids?
No.
This
I mean, this makes it more egregious, and the psychological damage is a little
right.
bit more. I mean, I could see that happening a little bit more definite with kids. So, but it's certainly just as egregious, kids or adults.
Alrighty, let's turn to the Supreme Court. Hot off the presses just yesterday, the Supreme
Yeah.
Court ruled on Donald Trump's executive order about sanctuary cities. They didn't rule specifically about the constitutionality of pulling funding from these sanctuary cities, but they did block it enough to ease the anxiety of these so-called sanctuary cities. I say so-called sanctuary cities because there's not even an official
real
legal
definition. And of course, the administration came back with, this is ridiculous and egregious. We had a little debate about whether or not we should play a song. I think we should have played, last night I took an L, but today I bounced back, that big song. I mean, the administration, they keep taking these losses, but, they keep coming back. They keep bouncing back. So that might have been the perfect one.
that would have been really awesome. I would.
So it looks like they're going.
Laugh.
They go full steam ahead. They get these rulings and they go, no, doesn't matter.
They are not afraid of failure there.
No,
they are not.
They take the
just
L's and they
keep
come
going.
bouncing back.
They just keep going.
I guess they look at winning as a numbers game.
Yeah.
So the interesting part of this analysis was whether the this order can be blocked because the order hasn't exactly come out. Like the funds have not been pulled. So could the cities, and the cities that sued were San Francisco and Santa Clara, were they correct?
Standing.
Did they have any standing to sue at this moment because no funds had actually been pulled?
That was the interesting part to this case to me. I just didn't feel like there was actually any damages for it to move forward.
I thought there were. I love the argument of the uncertainty because your federal funds are allotted for like the next year, so you need to know what you have. So in that way, I thought it was very. I thought that was a perfect.
The judge did point out that it puts these cities on like anxiety. Yeah. How do you do anything when you're not sure what's going to happen to your budget?
And I was shocked that even Spicer last month said that it could affect even law enforcement budget for these cities. So
that's what I thought was really, really interesting.
And that's another reason that the judge blocked this, because in the case to defend this executive order, the government tried to narrow down the scope of this executive order.
Yeah.
And the judge goes, I'm not buying that. I've heard the president himself say what the intention was for this executive order.
And because the scope they tried to narrow it down to was the enforcement of these like obscure acts, which in themselves have enforcement provisions.
Right.
So you wouldn't need to create an executive order.
So the judge, this was Orrick, found that the challenged cities had the right to sue because they faced immediate irreparable harm.
Yeah.
If the policy were allowed to be put in place, they would immediately be harmed. And there is no doubt the judge said that the president is trying to use this as a weapon. It's not. He wasn't just trying to pull funding specific to law enforcement. It was to be used as a weapon and could pull funding from other areas like health and things that are not immediately related
as we
to
know,
immigration.
As we know, your
Right.
public statements certainly can inform the legal cases that you bring. And even with the travel ban, I think if Trump had not spoken about a lot of stuff,
He had a
he
better
probably would have
chance.
had
Yeah.
a really good legal
The
chance to win.
judge also quoted Sean Spicer, the press secretary, in saying that he said out loud in a press conference, that the president intends to ensure that counties and other institutions that remain sanctuary cities don't get federal government funding in compliance with the executive order. So this was a punitive thing, not something that was narrowly tailored to.
But I say shout out to the Trump
Accomplish it.
administration because they
make
might
life
actually
easy.
be the most honest administration. They simply say what they are
What they
trying to do
mean.
and what they feel. And
That's interesting.
Much of it's not legal, much of it's
Right.
racist and misogynist, but still they say it. It's
honest.
great. It's honest.
Oh, okay. I'm
Gotta give 'em
glad
that little
you like
win.
that.
a little small.
Win, a little win.
Any guesses on the actual constitutionality of it? Because that's still yet to be decided. It's got to be, first of all,
It's
it's
a
going to
really
be
good
impossible.
argument.
It's going to be impossible because to define sanctuary cities is really hard, as they're finding. Some cities met with Jeff Sessions to figure this out, and a lot of cities came away thinking, "Oh, that's not us. That's not us."
And we know it's unconstitutional for the federal government to commandeer states. So you can't simply tell a state what to do and have them do it. That's something that's in their locus of control.
But they say, but you asked the federal government for money,
Yep.
so you better do what the federal government wants you to do with it. That's how the federal government works a lot of the time.
And those grants have provisions in them for that money, and if they meet those provisions, then it can't be touched.
Right.
So.
And then what about this? Well, law enforcement is all about, law and order. We must have law and order in this country. So you are violating our laws by not
But once
having
again,
local authorities enforce federal law.
But it's unconstitutional to commandeer the states. And so we do know that some of the things they want aren't even within the scope of the federal government, as in holding inmates longer in jails so that ICE can come for them. And we know that, if an inmate's ordered released by a judge, law enforcement simply can't continue to hold
Well,
them.
what about the argument, and I'm almost done playing at devil's advocate because I can't stand this position, that this is in the interest of national security, the safety of our
I
citizens?
disagree.
And again, it's commandeering on a different level.
And I don't see how they can say that putting all this attention on immigration issues, pulling focus and attention away from rape, robbery, murders, because plenty of those are committed by citizens, is going to make us any safer.
Yeah, and you can't say national security when you're also starting to pull fund from the law enforcement. So obviously that's simply not
They
going
don't
to
go
help.
hand in hand as far as a good argument. So we'll see.
Alrighty, and then the Supreme Court also has said that if you're exonerated, you get money back. This sounds like
It
justice
actually
to me.
made a lot of sense to me. I never even thought about this.
Did you wonder, how did this have to go to the Supreme
Right.
Court in the
I
first
really
place?
was just like, did somebody have a problem with this?
Colorado.
Well, oh, yeah.
Colorado has this law that if you want to get your fees, your court costs, your restitution back after you've been exonerated, you've got to prove your innocence.
Yeah.
Right. Shake your head. And the Supreme Court said, no, once you've been exonerated, there's an assumption that you are innocent and the state has no claim to that money anymore. So they got to give it back.
Yeah.
Well, this gets back to the board here in California that you now have to go through to get any type of funds when you've been wrongly accused.
It's just another hurdle to people that they
Yeah,
know
it's just-
have a difficulty overcoming that hurdle, because now you have to go to another proceeding. You probably need a lawyer
How
that
do you
pro
prove
bono.
your innocence?
Right, when you've been exonerated.
I think it's just it would be a procedural hurdle, but it would be probably very quick. But you'd need probably a lawyer pro bono to represent you, paperwork to fill out. A lot of people don't have the means or
More
resources
money.
to do that,
So
and
they end up letting it go by the wayside.
Yeah.
This was a 7-1 decision. Did you guys notice who did not go along with this? Eyes roll.
And it begins.
Judge Clarence Thomas was the only one of the justices. This was only an 8-panel decision because the new Justice Neil Gorsuch didn't participate
Yeah, Neil.
in this one.
Is it? I'm not going to say what I want to say.
Say it.
What? How
We're here.
dare
That's
you?
what we do here. We say what we want to say.
That is not allowed.
Be like the administration.
I will not. I will not.
Say it no matter how nasty and wrong it is.
is.
All right. So Clarence Thomas said that since the defendants were
I
not...
just don't even want to hear his name anymore.
I'm sorry.
Just, can we call him the other justice?
Yeah, right.
Let's come up with a better...
We'll
Yeah.
figure it out, but
Yeah.
I don't want his name mentioned.
All right. So the unnamed justice who dissented
Dissented.
here said that since the defendants were not wrongly deprived of their money, Colorado is therefore not required to provide any process at all for the return of that money. Response, please. After you pick
You
your
ever
job.
hear something and you're just like,
You,
I
this
know
man
that
is
this
a
made
Supreme
sense to
Court
you.
justice.
Yeah.
but how does that make sense? Like, how did that statement make sense? I want to understand you because it sounded very ignorant.
I don't know how to make sense of it.
Help me.
I can't make
I'm
sense of it.
stumped.
But I think my only sense I can make is
Thank you.
maybe as a justice, he has an idea of how he wants the overall picture of I'm only going to be very strict to the Constitution. I'm going to be. That's all.
So the Constitution doesn't specifically say anything about returning money to exonerated people. Therefore, the right does not exist.
And I think he thinks like that, and I think he views it
I
as.
can't believe I was able to put that into words. That
you
was
and me
disgusting.
both. I'm just
Yeah.
looking at you two like.
So we look at it as a living, breathing document. I think he might look at it as an artifact to just use that as sort of like
Scalia, strict constructionist.
Exactly.
If the right is not specifically stated.
regardless of the fact that
But
they couldn't have possibly contemplated it.
guys.
But,
I'm
yeah.
not saying I believe what I'm saying.
This is crazy.
But some justices
And
operate
to
on
me, this
philosophy
isn't
and
even
some, yeah.
necessarily a right that needed to be put in the Constitution because now you guys are really reaching. This is just one of those logical conclusions that we should all come to.
Oh,
Like,
the logic and the law.
I mean,
Yeah.
They're
you
not
guys,
always bedfellows.
This is like returning an item that you did not like to Amazon and them deciding, thank you for giving it back, but we're not going to give you your money back. Like your
an interesting
system,
analogy.
your judicial system has decided
Yeah.
I'm no longer at fault for whatever the case is. So give me what I've paid for to your system back.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't understand
Yeah.
how that's not a logical
Yeah.
conclusion, you
I
guys.
completely understand your confusion.
And I think
because it
that's
doesn't-
viewing it in context. But I think some justices don't want to
At
view
least
things
7
in context.
justices agree with you.
Yeah.
Is it
agree with
bad,
us.
you guys? I'm going to say what I was
And
going
we
to say before.
yeah. We're both like,
The
what?
suspense.
I've never been ready for someone to die.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I can't say that nobody at this table had those thoughts about Scalia.
Well, yeah. I would hope they were retired. It wasn't about.
Scalia didn't bother me Scalia bothered me, but not to the point that this man that I shall
Why?
not let his name roll off on my tongue
Why?
bothers me.
Why?
Because
I think
he's
there's
just not a logical person.
I think there's also an understanding of the fact that he's black and he should have had experiences that would make him a little bit more in touch with certain issues.
I don't
that,
even blame him for that.
to me, I
because
think he
don't know
should
how
be more in
was
touch.
raised.
No, but even so, I think the fact of just being a minority in this country should give you a different veil to a degree as to
Have
the
you
issues.
ever met a black person that somehow had a sense of white privilege, even though they weren't white to have said privilege?
Yeah, I have. But
That's the box that I put this.
but they tend to
this
still
man
have
in.
some texture and some idea of.
Not the ones that I've
Oh,
come
really?
across. I'm always just like, you should be in a museum or
So,
be studied
I think
somewhere
that's what's
because you
infuriating.
blow
In a
my
science lab.
mind.
Okay.
But yeah, I think a lot of the other justices, especially like Sonia Sotomayor, when she was getting confirmed, she talked about her history as a Latina and as a woman and how it informs her decisions. So I think maybe that's a frustration of
I would
Clarence
just like
Thomas
to
or
have
that
some
background
logical justices.
doesn't
That's
do
all.
that.
Too much to ask?
But yeah, at least on this one we got
Perhaps.
7. So we got 7 out of 8 ain't bad.
Speaking of Justice Sotomayor,
Yeah.
she kind of went on the attack
Yeah.
against the criminal justice system for our bias against victims of police brutality.
Yeah, so they rejected this case here.
Yeah, this case out of Houston where a guy, Ricardo Salazar Limon, was said to have resisted arrest back in 2010. Officer made the claim that he turned to grab something from his waistband, so the officer shot him, hit him in the back, and now he's partially paralyzed. But lo and behold, no gun was found, and he sued for excessive force.
See, in this case,
And he didn't win.
So you guys, I remember originally hearing about this when the issue happened, and in my mind, I kept being thankful that he was partially paralyzed and not dead. Because one of the arguments that I always make when, we do hear about police shootings is that you could at least shoot to wound. Like, that's always my point. Is like, why is it always a kill shot? Like, they have a choice. And so I was thankful in this one instance, like, wow, he's not dead.
At least they just paralyzed.
Like, I mean, and it's sad to, even have to have that type of thought process, but it was just kind of like, it could have been worse.
Well, it could have been worse, but it should have been better, and that's the problem.
I agree 1,000%. It should have been way better, but it's like, it's sad to me that that's the world that we live in, that you have to be thankful that someone's partially paralyzed and not dead.
Yeah.
That's a really shitty consolation prize.
Right?
And I think the problem here is that the judge made the decision.
Right.
So, you want to see these things go to a jury, a trier of fact, and these juries can make decisions in your peers, So having the judge make the decision, I think, was problematic.
And that's what Justice Sotomayor was saying, is that how is it that this didn't get in front of a jury?
Yeah.
And we're seeing this isn't the only case. There's 5 other cases similar to this where the justices reversed lower courts and found in favor of the
excessive
police.
force, yeah. But however, they have not been so kind to the victims that have tried to bring forth these cases.
To me, I feel like it's a larger conversation that we need to have as far as the next crop of professionals come through the judicial system, that we need more, what's the word I want to use? Just logical-minded individuals on the bench.
That's
because
difficult.
that's really how we begin to move the needle a little bit. It's
Well,
like,
I think you saw with some of those Obama appointees, at least for me, ideology aside, he picked people that had like these sort of histories where they could draw from, but that were also pretty neutral jurists.
Yeah. I mean, because to me, I've always felt like a judge should always be very neutral.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed in recent history is that that's not necessarily the case in a lot of the country.
Yeah, even on the other side, even on the liberal side, some of the judges aren't very neutral at all. But with Sotomayor, what I like to
they're seeing things through the veil of their life experience.
Yes.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah.
You just showered me.
Yeah.
Just like what we wanted from the justice who shall not be named because we will psychologically damage Domonique here.
And I don't want to have to see you guys for emotional distress.
We want him to see the world through the lens that the minority and all that. And now, and some justices do, and then they get criticized for that.
And that's what I liked about Sotomayor. She cited, these articles about these shootings that have become problematic. Like, because of who she is, she's kind of in tune to what's happening in the country in that area. And she's saying this should have at least been heard by the Supreme Court. She's not saying we should have ruled in its favor, but she's saying this should have been heard.
She is pointing out that there's this is, quote, increasing frequency of incidents in which unarmed men allegedly reach for empty waistbands when facing armed officers.
And she did say
so
it could...
She's on to something.
And
this is just something that cops are saying over and over.
And she said you could find in the police's favor, but we should still be looking at the case.
Yeah.
Right.
So hopefully that makes you a fan of Justice Sotomayor.
You guys already should have been.
She was joined in that opinion by another fave, RBG.
Please hold on, girl.
Like, you guys, I'm like, do we need to start a prayer line?
Yeah, hold on.
I just need
But she's been there for a minute. I think she's holding on. I think she's
in good health.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. Ish.
She's like Betty White. I'm like, just girl.
Keep it up.
Don't do it to me.
Yeah,
Don't
keep it
do
up.
it to me.
All right, and finally, the JAYWALKER'S cop nightmare gets worse when he gets to jail. Did you see this poor kid? This was Nandy Kane Jr., 24 years old. And I was considering showing the dash cam video, except it's not that great quality. You can't see all that well. But you see him walking down the street. This is in Sacramento. It's a residential area, like a very quiet street. There's like nobody around, and this guy has just crossed the street, no cars for miles. This was not like he crossed a really busy street and slowing down traffic and cars had to swerve around him or anything. Nothing like that at all. Just, I can't imagine what this guy was probably thinking, just la-da-dee-da, when he just gets rolled up by the cops. And then he knows he hasn't done anything. I don't even know how that counts as jaywalking. I mean, I do that all the time and never. I mean, I think of jaywalking is when you cross a busy street.
Right, and I've always thought of I mean, jaywalking in itself, like,
when the thing is not
crossing a street
with the hand
at either non-intersectional point, or when you have not been given the clearance to cross an intersection.
There were no cars.
However,
there was no,
I always
there was
thought
no lines
you guys,
drawing
you
the
always have to look. You guys always, I always look at what the intent for a particular law was, and it was to protect not only the pedestrian but for the drivers themselves, so that they're following the light and they're not put into a dangerous situation by slamming on the brakes too fast or endangering the pedestrian. To me, I feel like if those thresholds aren't met in the situation, you should not be picking me up for jaywalking. Like,
however, the law doesn't work that way.
I agree 1,000%. That's just not how things work here.
I look at the intent and then I decide if I'll follow it.
Well, it's not a matter.
my logic.
It's not a matter of following it or not, but it's like, am I endangering anybody by crossing this street?
Yeah, and we do know there is a principle in the law that you're allowed to break the law if it somehow decreases a substantial danger. But you can't do it if there's just...
Okay, so this young guy keeps walking. He doesn't stop when the cop tries to stop him for the jaywalking. Was that correct? Probably
Whenever
not.
the police indicate you should stop,
You should
stop.
So he then goes into the middle of the street where there's a car that had driven up that like stops, because I imagine that the people in the car see this officer and this person like getting heated and wants to serve as a witness. And so Mr. Kane like walks to the middle of the street, probably so that he can be seen.
Right.
Takes off his jacket. He later says he took off the jacket to show that he was not armed.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else could say removing your jacket makes it look like you're asking for a fight.
Right.
And sure enough, it comes to blows. And then they're fighting, and then like 45, okay, maybe not 45, but like 4 or 5 more cops come rolling up, and they haul him off to jail. But he has now, Mr. Kane, filed a civil rights lawsuit in federal court against Sacramento city and county officials based on racially biased abuse that violated his constitutional rights and left him with an untreated concussion, black eye, broken nose, and mental condition. Because he says not only did Officer Anthony Figueroa beat him up, but then he got taken to jail and was further mistreated there.
Mind you, I didn't watch the video, but I didn't understand where once they had him on the ground, why they continued to beat him up. Like, I just didn't understand why he wasn't arrested. But it continues to be the trend lately, as of lately, and I'm just like, I've never tried to arrest anybody, at least in this type of form. And so my thought is, how hard could it possibly be when you have more than one officer trying to arrest you? Like, is it that? I need an officer. Tweet me. I don't know. But how hard could it possibly be? I'm confused.
And that's actually a good point. We're not opposed to having an officer's perspective. So an officer wants to call in.
We might need to have an officer on the show.
Because I'm confused.
But, yeah, with that many people. I was going to say, if it's 1 or maybe even 2 officers, I can understand maybe the avoidance of doubt, so maybe, make sure the person's really subdued. But once you have that many officers in the scene, what's the concern?
And now they have these cool, nifty little, like, zip ties thingies to make it easier to, like, handcuff someone. Come on now.
Yeah, so, I mean, but will he prevail?
It's a good question.
Well, because the case went further, if I understand, and it wasn't necessarily just that they beat him up, but when he got to the station, he didn't receive immediate care.
Yeah.
Which is an issue.
That to me
I feel like is where he may prevail. I don't think he'll actually prevail on them actually beating him.
Because because they apply the law.
Take a look at Rodney King. Maybe it'll work. I don't know.
And because here's the thing, because officers unequally apply the law, it doesn't mean you're going to get a civil rights violation out of it.
Right.
So, yes, they might pick up more black people and Hispanic people for marijuana violations, but that is the law. So
do you think it mattered? Because you think about it, all he was doing, his crime was jaywalking. Yeah. He gets his ass beat. Okay? But really, the crime was not
It's really a resisting
cooperating with the
arrest.
with the police officer when he got.
So
was asked to
either way,
stop.
for the stop and for the initial beating, I guess you might say, they had some justification. So it's going to be a very hard case for him to win. So it's going to have to go back to that station and the care and the level of care he should have received.
I think that's really where he should stick this claim.
Yeah.
And where?
He should really focus on the care he received once he got to the station. I think that's where he could really judge it.
Unless his witnesses have some.
Mind you, he had someone stop and get who was going to be a witness for him, right?
Yeah.
So
unless the witness has something really good if they have something really that goes far beyond the bounds of police conduct, then that's where he might get some
he was all the way down when they began to beat. I think, because
they took the batons out after he's on the floor.
That's when you get to an excessive force, is when you already have the accused subdued and you continue to beat. I hate the but beat basically.
And I think, and I haven't seen the video, and I don't know if taking off the jacket was to show a weapon or to fight. And I think if it was to fight, these officers may have been charged up and upset.
I think the jacket is completely off when the fight happens. Yeah. So to me, I'm like, well, you knew he wasn't trying to pull out a weapon.
No, but I'm saying the officers as people probably were a little bit. If he was in fact trying to fight them, they probably wanted to beat the hell out of him.
If I'm said officer, it's late night. I'm tired.
Yeah.
It wasn't late night.
Bear with me. Haven't had coffee since about 8 a.m. I'm sleepy. I pulled a double-double. And I'm trying to get this young man to come here so I can really just give him a hard time about jaywalking in the street. And as I ask them to come over, I get an a-hole that's like flips me the bird and keeps on walking.
He doesn't flip the bird. He puts his hands up like, I don't have anything. And I'm going to just keep walking.
At this point, now I'm irritated because you think you're better than me and you can't stop.
No, we're saying.
But I'm just trying to go to the most favorable to the cop. I'm already pissed now that I've asked you to do something and you don't respect my authority to do it. Devil's advocate here. Yeah. Because I'm trying to step into your shoes.
Thanks.
And the individual gives me attitude.
And even postures that he might fight me.
Right. No, but then the way I walk into this new situation, the level in which I'm at is no longer the nice officer. Because this situation probably would have gone a totally different way had he have just been like, yes, officer.
Oh, really?
I apologize.
Oh, really? You've never seen a time when somebody cooperates with the officer?
But I'm certain it could have gone a different way, though. Either if the guy was extra nice and was able to, or if the officers had better training.
I mean, I think about all the times that I've been pulled over and my sugar and not sour posture has gotten me out of a few tickets.
And I've been pulled over simply because I'm black, but because I just comply. Thank you, okay, officer.
Right.
There's not the issue of, because sometimes they pull me over and I go, I really want to say, what the hell are you stopping me for? What's going on? Why,
and I've had situations where I've been in bum F, middle of nowhere, Oregon, and been pulled over by an officer, and he has been extremely mean to me, no matter how much sweetness I'm giving this man. And you do have to, as a person, you have to pause yourself and say, hey, I'm not going to go with my rational thought process, which is to cuss you out because you're being unnecessarily mean and I'm not giving you a reason to be. But you still have to remind yourself, this man has the authority to, one, haul my ass off to jail, secondly, shoot me and make it seem like I did something wrong. So I'm going to be sweet regardless of how rude you are and in the wrong you are.
And that's the problem with that. Well, not the problem, but that's one of the considerations is that, yes, I might be able to fight this case and win later, but do I want to go to jail tonight?
I want to be alive to fight.
Or be alive.
I want to be alive. I don't want you guys to have to fight this for me.
I don't want my estate to win. I want.
Right? I want to see these fruits. Yeah. Okay.
Oh man, what a day!
Considerations.
Of justice
Considerations on all, and these are just considerations of life.
Oh, rough times. Okay, but all in all, there was some justice that we got to talk about today. Happy about that.
It's been a good day.
Yeah.
Good day for justice.
Good day for justice.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Justice is Served. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, tweet at me, at Chelsea Galicia, or the rest of the gang.
Ms. Price?
Or me, at Domonique P_ESQ.
And you guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong.
See you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
From executives Kevin Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, We would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me @KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood Redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.